chances are if you're just getting started, they are going to outsmart you on psychology, on copywriting, on list building every single time. If you want to focus on growing the business, you eventually need to not be on sales calls all day, every day.
The Next Gen Sales Leaders Podcast. Coffees for Closers.
What's up, guys? Ben Reed here with the Next Gen Sales Leaders Podcast. I'm here with Jay Feldman. He's YouTube's #1 expert in B2B lead generation and cold email outreach. He's the founder of Otter PR, a 2x Inc. 5000 winner with over 60 employees. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to shooting it with you and talking a little bit about lead gen and cold email.
So if anybody doesn't know Jay, I've been following Jay on YouTube for as long as I can remember, and he certainly is one of the authorities in the space. So it's so exciting that I actually get to speak with you. So I want to know, how did you become who you are? Because people see obviously the tens of thousands of YouTube followers. They see obviously, you're on all these podcasts and you obviously have, a great brand. You didn't start there. So how does somebody like you become you? I'm very interested in that.
Probably the first time you've ever heard this story. I know one other guy like me, doctor to entrepreneur. I went all the way through that path. So I'll kind of give you a little quick synopsis of how that happened, because most people don't do something that's stupid. My grandma still hates me for it. So I grew up in a middle-class Jewish household. Everyone was pushing me towards medicine for years and years, not realizing being a doctor now is not what it was 50 years ago. So I got into medical school in New York City, was super excited. The year that I took off, my gap year before starting medical school, lived with my best friend, Jesse Henry, who was the president of the Entrepreneurship Club. He kind of introed me into business. I started a tutoring/essay writing company during that gap year. That would never exist today with AI. Those companies are toast. But I got really interested in business during that time. So I started another business my first year of medical school with nutritional supplements. My second year of medical school, I launched my first marketing agency. And then I just fell in love. I was a really good doctor and a good student, but I was very good and very passionate about systems, about marketing, about automation. Even back then when it was like Zapier and very base level stuff, I was all in on it. So the marketing agency actually kind of took off during medical school. I basically ghosted my 4th year of medical school, had some doctor friends sign off on papers saying I was at the rotations when I was not, and built my business. Fast forward to being distracted for a year, did a family medicine residency for 1 year while I was trying to build my company on the side, and was basically faced with the decision whether to leave or stay. I left, went all in on the marketing agency, and it did very, very well. Otter PR launched in 2020. We now have over 60 employees, have won Inc. 5000 multiple times. And that's kind of where I got really good at lead generation. Trying to generate leads for a high ticket PR firm was not easy. And it was not cheap when you're just starting out, because you can't compete with the big guys with ads. So I needed to figure out how to get leads for a low cost. So lo and behold, cold email ended up being the answer. I got really, really good at it. Now, back in the day, this was almost a decade ago now, the practices were a lot different. It was a lot easier. The tools were different. So I've been continuously adapting with the times, because it's still our primary source of leads to this day for that agency. A couple years ago, I decided to start teaching what I was learning. Launched my YouTube channel with no expectation but to give back, and people liked it, and they started demanding courses and more offers. So Lead Gen J was born, and here we are today.
Very cool. This is a break in the podcast to bring you our sponsor, ReadyOps.com. That is REVYOPS.com, the #1 GTM data management platform for your GTM and revenue operations data on planet Earth. If you are using the modern stack of Clay and Instantly and Email Bison and RB2B and Trigify and all these various tools scattered across the wind, we unify all that data all into one place so you don't have any duplicates, a unified view of every single contact so you can see all the data and all the
the activities across all the platforms all in one place. It will allow you and your team to move faster, to get better attribution across the entire funnel, and to make a heck of a lot more money. Go to reviops.com, check out how you can get started today with me on a call where we'll learn about your data management problems and how we can get you guys to the next level of growth. See you guys at reviops.com. Go there now. It will be in the show notes as well down below. Let's get back to the podcast.
So Lead Gen J, where did that brand name come from? That is, it's a great name. Is there a story?
As a marketer, we call that top of mind marketing. When people are thinking lead gen, you want them to think Lead Gen J. There was a couple other guys doing it that I really respected. I saw them on like Marketing Harry. There's a couple other ones that I can't come to mind right now. But like, oh, I think that person's name. I wanted that. It hit really well. No one else was using it. I wanted some good top of mind marketing with great SEO. So it just makes everything else easier when you have that going for you.
Yeah, brand resonance is a hard thing to do, and brand salience is something that my old business partner used to say a lot about, which is how do you make the name of the business so obviously clear on an awareness level of what it actually means? And Lead Gen J, I mean, how much clearer can you get? I kind of tried to do that with RevOps, my software, RevOps. But it's difficult because it's like most of the good domains are kind of taken, or the good names. And so that's why you always hear like, why does Alex Hormozy have his YouTube channel as Alex Hormozy? Why does, Jay Abraham say Jay Abraham, right? All these guys just go beyond the name or by the name because there's more personality involved. So
yes,
Kurt, you've obviously done that. Do you think that's a big part of how you got going quickly, is that you built up this brand around yourself rather than these actual kind of more not cold, but like not a human like entity? I'm curious about that.
Yeah,
Like
I
in
think
your PR
especially when
groups.
it comes to social media, people want to follow a human and they don't want to follow a brand. Granted, some brands have done a really good job, like personifying the brand, putting humans and faces in front of them. But when you're on social media, you want to connect with a human. You want to trust that human, buy that human's thing. And it's much easier to build that trust when you're coming at it from a human point of view rather than from some nameless, faceless company. So I think the Lead Gen J brand kind of figured out a way to do both, because it's kind of the Lead Gen brand, but it's me. I'm Lead Gen J. Granted, it's going to make it impossible to sell. No one's ever going to buy Lead Gen J as a company. The whole thing is me making content, which is a hamster wheel conversation that I'm happy to have. But I think it blew up quickly because of my willingness to just share everything that I've actually learned doing it myself successfully. Whereas a lot of the people on YouTube weren't coming from any other spaces other than teaching cold email. They've built maybe cold email agencies where they maybe do cold email for clients, or they just teach cold email. But I think my perspective was unique. I went to build a PR firm. Here's what I did to get leads for this firm. And now I'm just teaching you how to do it. I have nothing else to sell you. And that was true at the time. I had nothing else to sell them. I didn't have any cold email programs or services. Obviously, that's changed now as the demand has grown. But back then, I think it was a superpower, whereas every cold email agency owner out there teaching lead generation and cold email on YouTube, they had a CTA at the bottom. They were probably gatekeeping a lot of the good stuff. They weren't going to just, here's what I'm doing for all of our high ticket clients. Whereas I was. I'm like, this is what's working, do this.
And that seems to be the rule nowadays, which is give away everything almost. And then there's obviously some funnel on the back end at some point once you have some demand. And it's interesting because there's some big names in our space, the cold email space, that have YouTube channels, and they pale in comparison to yours. I mean, yours is like 100 times bigger than all of them. And so you've obviously hit a nerve in some way that is more resonant on YouTube than other cold email agencies or lead gen agencies have been able to do. And I'm curious, what is that? I mean, what about the content or the topics, or there's some secret sauce you have? I'd love to know what you're doing.
I think the answer is the barrier to entry to do what I do, specifically with the really, really long form videos. My most recent one, I think I released it 3 to 6 months ago, somewhere in that time range, was like 7 hours and 20 minutes, all one video. It took me 2 weeks to film. It ended up being about 20 hours of content before my editors whittled it down.
Wow.
But that's a barrier that most people just aren't willing to do to break through, to get everybody who's interested in lead gen or cold email buying in and watching that entire video. I don't think anyone's done it in the cold email space, at least not to that degree. I did the same thing last year. It was about 4 hours. This year was 7 hours and 20 minutes. Just everything I know, here it is. So I think content like that really helps you stand out in a crowd of, YouTubers who are mostly regurgitating one another, to attract people who, want someone who's actually like knows the stuff, and it comes across that way. And you can get someone to watch, 20 of your 5-minute videos, or you can get someone to watch one video that's very, very long, and they're much more likely to trust you and buy in through the course of that video.
I remember when I was 25. So I was a philosophy major in school.
Cool.
I had no reason to ever be in business. In fact, my dad was kind of anti-business because my grandfather was Mr. Business. He was the publisher of Technology magazine back in like the 60s.
Cool.
And so my dad kind of came up, more in the public service. He's a federal prosecutor. My mom was a school teacher. And so I remember I went to multiple nonprofits and multiple fundraising political things, from 2011 through 2014. That was right out of college. I graduated in 2011. And I remember asking the question, like, what is sales and marketing? Like, I didn't know, like, what the difference was. It wasn't obvious to me. And the reason I'm bringing that up right now is because there's somebody out there who's going to listen to this who isn't, Lead Gen J or me or anybody else who's deeply embedded in the space. And I'm sure they're asking themselves, like, well, what's cold email marketing? Because I remember I did. I was like, what's the difference between cold email marketing and paid ads or direct response mail or trade shows? And which one do I choose? And how do I choose it? And even here we are, you and I are lead gen experts. We're sales and marketing experts, but we're on a podcast, right? And we're talking. And in fact, you probably spend most of your time creating content, right?
I wish.
So I guess the question is like, what advice would you give that person? So go back, me 12 years ago when I was just getting into the space at the age of 24, 25, 13 years ago. What would you give advice to that person if they were just starting out from a lead generation perspective?
I guess probably the same advice that was so useful to me back when I was growing Otter PR. Because when you're starting off, you have very little resources, you have very little experience, very little expertise in anything that's super valuable. So like making content like this is out of the question for you when you're just starting out. Your goal as a beginner should be build skills, hopefully build some case studies, and try and build a company with the limited resources that you have. And without funding, you're really limited to DM, like getting on your phone and sending people messages on Instagram, LinkedIn, which you should totally do as a beginner. Running ads is a tough sport. You need to be better than all the other people running ads. You need to be really good at tracking and attribution so you know how much you can pour into it. Ads is not for beginners. But as a beginner with a couple $100 a month to generate leads with, your marketing agency offer, your PR offer, your graphic design, web offer, all of the good beginner companies that most people tend to start with, the best and cheapest way to get right in front of a decision maker that's trackable is to send them an email. And you can follow the stuff that I teach in my master classes and stuff and set up your Instantly and all your mailboxes, or you can just sit there and email them in your Gmail account for completely free. But that's the only way that I've ever found to get in front of the exact people you want with the exact message and not pay for it. Every other ad platform is going to charge you except email.
So the advice is, you think you have an offer, new person, you think you have something worth selling. I think that should be, and many news people don't even know what an offer is. It's like, well, what is an offer? Something to sell, and it's a way of packaging it. Reading Magnetic Marketing by Dan Kennedy is a great intro to that.
Yes.
For anybody who wants to know. But then you're saying, okay, now you have to find a list, obviously, and you have to, an email would be where you would start, is just get a list and start direct emailing people, or DMing, it sounds like, on LinkedIn or Instagram.
Assuming they've already done the groundwork of starting a company, figuring out what that skill is going to be that they're going to build and build an agency around, getting the LLC, getting a CRM. Like there's so many little steps. But yeah, if the question is, how do I start generating leads with no money and no case studies? Yeah, you need to find people you're going to email. You need to figure out what you're going to say. And your goal is probably going to be to book them on a call. So there's a lot of even free ways to get a lot of email addresses, data, essentially at no price, no cost. You could go to Google and check out different businesses, see the email addresses in their description. Obviously, there's faster and more automated ways to do this. If you're curious about that, Apollo.io, Instantly.ai, you can just use all of their data as well. You could set up the mailboxes there. We have those services as well to automate all that stuff. But essentially figure out who you're going to send emails to that might be a good fit for your offer and start emailing them and try different copy and different strategies to see what works.
Mm-hmm. Well, so copywriting is kind of this mysterious word that new, especially business owners who are like maybe good at what they're doing or offering.
Yeah.
But then they hear, okay, I have to market, and I keep hearing this word copywriting. And I know seems so obvious to anybody here who's really deep in the weeds on what we do, but I'm trying to make this accessible for the broader audience.
Yeah.
So how do you look at copywriting? Because I have so many deep thoughts on this, and I'm very curious about like what's your take on copywriting? How do you approach it, and how do you think about it?
Copywriting is a tough one to teach because it's so nuanced and it's an art just as much of a science. And it's going to vary so much based on who you're trying to reach and what you're saying. Now, the way that I approach it is always to put myself in the shoes of the person who's going to be reading that copy. And copywriting as a general term is much different when we're talking about website copy versus ad copy versus cold email copy versus blog copy. Each of those different platforms has a very different intention for that copy. There's different best practices, there's different tones. So I don't know which platform you want to chat about, but this is where the reading books like Dan Kennedy really comes into play. Knowing the platform that you're writing the copy for, putting yourself in the shoes of the person reading that copy, and trying to follow best practices based on what that platform is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where I always tell everybody, like, I have this sitting next to me at all times, breakthrough advertising, just because it's like, for me, it's the Bible. But it's too dense, I think, for a beginner. I don't want to say that. Go buy it. It's $400 on Amazon. It's extremely expensive because it's out of print. But that's like, if you want the university of copywriting, that's a great place. Any of Dan Kennedy's work is great. I think even just more recently, just Alex Hormozy's thoughts on a lot of the subjects around offer make a big difference. But I guess we're just getting started. I'm kind of on this trend right now of like, on this conversation of we're launching an email campaign. So we have the offer, all the basics are set up. We're going to go send our first messages as a business. And we have the list, and we're about to write the email. And we can narrow it down to a specific scope. But what are you doing first? I mean, you have a subject line, you have a body, but there's so much, to your point, like an art within that space. How do you think about what versions to test first, and how to know what's working and not working, anything like that?
So I'll tell you what people should do as beginners launching their first cold email campaign. Pay the $20 a month and subscribe to Claude or even ChatGPT. Chances are, if you're just getting started, they are going to outsmart you on psychology, on copywriting, on list building every single time. So I would use those tools at your disposal because you're probably going to be wrong when you write your subject line, when you write your copy, when you're figuring out the potential pain points of the people that you're emailing. The AI is going to know typically more than you. So I would use that as your co-pilot. Say, okay, this is what I want to sell. Web design services, cool. Who is a good fit for this? Talk to your AI. Oh, here's some industries that would be a good fit. Cool. What job title should I email? What company sizes are most encountering these problems where they really need like web design support and help? Okay, cool. Like brand new companies, less than a year old, 1 to 10 employees. At that point, you've got a good refined list. You've got a good co-pilot. All right, cool. What should I say in the subject line of the email? Give me 10 subject lines to test. Now, there's really three things when it comes to copywriting that you need to accomplish with a cold email. And that's to get it opened, to get someone to read it, and get someone to reply to it. So anytime I'm writing an email, I think about it in those kind of three blocks. Getting them to open it is the preview text of the email. That's the subject line and the first sentence. To get somebody to open your email, the number one trick is don't sound like you're about to send them a cold email. If they sense that you are cold emailing them or selling them on something, they're either going to spam it or trash it. So my way of thinking about this is, as you're putting together that cold email, say, will they stop and wonder if this is from a client, a vendor, or a partner? And if you can get them to stop and think that, chances are they're going to open it. Now, you don't want to bait them, because baiting them lands you in the spam, because they're going to open the email and delete it. The quick question no longer works. The subject line and first sentence needs to be relevant to the actual email. Now, getting somebody to read it can be tricky. They don't know who you are. They're already skeptical, and they're not going to give you any brain power or time. So you want them to ideally read it in a second. So you have 1 to 2 sentences to convey your message. Hopefully you've got a unique offer or a front-end offer that they haven't seen 20 times already today, or maybe some kind of social proof that can back you up. Trust and credibility is everything in this game. The faster you can build it in cold email, the better your chances are going to be. So 2 to 3 sentences tops in the middle of that email to get them to read it, trust you, and understand. And then a call to action needs to be really conversational and simple. It should end with, want me to send it over? Are you using this? Are you not using this? Cool if I send you some more info. They should be able to read and respond within a second with one hand. If you do that, which is way easier said than done, no matter what your offer is or who you're reaching out to, your copy's going to work.
It's not to make this all about Dan Kennedy, but he keeps coming up for me, which is he talks about in the mail order business, because he started with it was just like direct response, all in mail back in like the 70s. And he became obsessed with actually seeing other people's mail as it came in. So I like that as an idea, but for cold email, which is like, it sounds weird, but start collecting spam. Like actually look at the ones that you're like, ooh, I want to look at that. And just put it into like a little folder bucket in your Gmail or whatever you're using, Outlook. And save the ones you like. And then even maybe save the ones that you really dislike. And at some point when you have a moment, just take a look and go, why did I like this? What stood out about it? Like what word? And what I find, I spend a lot more time on LinkedIn than I do in my email. And I even notice like there's certain like starting words that people use where I can tell it's a pitch right off of like a single word. And people I've talked to recently seem to not believe in that idea. But I really believe in the power of a single word changing something. And especially to your point about the subject line and the preview text, people always forget about the preview text. The preview text actually has an impact. And I would just belabor like the first 2 to 3 words in the subject line and the preview text. They're going to look at it. And if there's any smell of bullshit, immediately they move on, right? So take it. It's almost like the hook. It's like I just launched a bunch of ads myself. Nice. And every time I launch the ads, I use the same one that Alex Hormozy likes, which is, there's a couple good books that he has, but I don't know if I have one around here. But the whole idea is 50 hooks, 2 bodies, three call to actions. And so then you combine them all together. And the reason he does 50 hooks and only 2 bodies is because only 2% or 1% of the viewers actually get past the first 5 to 10 seconds of the video. Yes. So the algorithm is actually looking at engagement on that first piece as the first thing. And it's the same thing, I think, with email. People forget about that, well, if you don't know what a hook is, then start there. But assuming you know what a hook is, it's a way of grabbing attention and making somebody watch the rest. Email is no different, but I think it's even more rigorous than visuals, because in the visuals, at least if you're a good-looking guy or a girl or woman, and you have some charisma and you can get some, an extra few seconds where you have one word and the person has made a judgment about that. So if I could like leave it with anybody here is like, understand the powers of words, understand that a single word makes all the difference, and get very clear on which words to use. For me, the way that you do that is, one, test a lot, but two, is deeply understand the ideal customer profile you're sending to, which I particularly like cold calls to get keywords when I do the mom test, which is a whole deep discussion. So I guess
I'm excited to hear about the mom test. But that's a good insight. I agree with all of it. All it's easier said than done. This is why it's such an art. You need to do it for a while, see results, listen to coaching calls with various offers and ICPs that you're trying to reach out to, and think about, I'm emailing this guy runs a marina. He's probably a 70-year-old white guy. You're going to talk to him differently than you're going to talk to somebody running a sustainability company or a clothing boutique. The tone changes, the words change, and a lot of this just comes with experience and reps.
Have you ever read, I'm trying to find online right now, it's the letters, it's like Gary Culverson, what's his name? Gary Copywriting from jail. What, do you know that book that I'm talking about?
From jail? No.
Gary Halbert. It's the Boron Letters. If anybody wants like a really fun read, the Boron Letters by Gary, it's Gary Halbertson, right? Hold on one sec.
Gary Halbert. Yeah, I found it.
Halbert's, the Boron Letters. And so the whole book, he's one of like the gurus back in the 80s on copywriting. And he went to jail. I don't know why. It's like, I think he was like defrauded somebody or something. He was too good at persuasion and not good enough at fulfillment, I guess. And he, in jail, he decided that he was going to write letters to his son. And he never expected to publish them. But the entire thing that he realized in jail is that he didn't want to die without passing on his knowledge. And so he writes like every day these very detailed letters to his son about copywriting. And it's like literally just how to be a great copywriter. So it's not a bunch of BS. He's genuinely trying to pass on like his je ne sais quoi, his core ethos to his son. And it's a great read. And one of the pieces of advice that he gives in that book is to find the other great copywriters like himself or Eugene Schwartz or any of these other guys, and just literally read their letters and actually write them out. So he would have his son literally take a piece of paper, and he said, I want you not to type it. I want you to write out the copy exactly as it's written in the form, because you're training your subconscious to start to feel and detect what great copy looks like because of the art nature of it, right? It's not something you can just intellectualize. You have to almost feel it. Right. I thought that was very interesting.
That is. I got the book pulled up. I'm going to check that one out too. I wonder how AI is going to transform the way people learn copy, or if they're even going to bother anymore. I mean, nowadays I've got an AI co-pilot that are literally trained on the pros. I actually use some of the names you mentioned in a lot of my prompts, like write in the tone of X, write in the tone of Y, based on what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's getting better and better and better. We even use it in like version 1 of a lot of our production level copy, even though it's got a lot of examples of stuff that I've done in the past. So it's pulling from my tactics and other people's language. And I think it performs really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have such a split feeling about it, because on one hand, I do the same exact thing. I mean, I totally diagrammed Eugene Schwartz's entire book in a Lucidchart document, then threw it into ChatGPT, and then like added in like all these example texts. And I trained a little GPT that I now like all of my hooks for all of my ads are completely created by that. And all I do, for anyone listening, like I have a teleprompter that I'm looking into right now if you're watching on YouTube. And I take my 50 hooks, I set character limits, and I put them in front of me on a teleprompter software, and I push go. And all I do is like literally just say the hook, deep breath, say the next hook, and I just say the hooks just exactly as the copy is written by the GPT. I put it into Descript, my editor, and then I just cut them up, and then I copy them over, because you can copy in Descript. It's a great editing tool, into all your bodies. That's the way that I do it. But I don't write any hooks anymore, because I'm like, you know what? My hook's probably wrong. Like, I'm just
Right.
going to let AI write the hook. I just don't have the time, and I'd rather just create 50 variations in 20 minutes, load them into Facebook or wherever you're advertising and let it run. That said, it's dangerous because I think the body is where it gets a little more tricky to test, even though the headline and the subject is the most important. I find that subject matter expertise is the most important component of the entire copywriting formula. And that comes through many conversations with the end user and customer. And my fear is that if I tell people, just use AI, it works, because
Right.
I do, that they actually lose the most important ingredient, which is go talk to your ideal customer 50 to 100 times, record the conversations. And that's the mom test, where ask questions like, what's the top 3 problems you're facing in your business? How are you solving them? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? It's more of like an anthropological interview than it is a sales pitch. But have you found that AI copy, or do you still A/B test like Spintax or versus AI versus like hard coded copy, or how are you thinking about that?
Our best performing copy is still very short copy that I've written, usually 2 to 3 sentences with 1 or 2 words, maybe 1 phrase that's AI generated for enrichment. Now, how I'm thinking about it for the copy that I write and that I deploy, I think differently about the tactics that I teach to the next guy who's just getting started. Because you're right, there's nothing that can replace subject matter expertise, me talking to thousands of businesses and knowing all of their pain points, knowing all of the bullshit people are sending that they need to filter through on a daily basis. But that's a much harder thing to teach. And I've kind of just come to the realization that most of the people deploying copy are just going to go to my templates, and templates don't work because templates get overused.
Exactly.
Templates people see over and over again. So I can show you what I'm doing, but if as soon as I release it publicly, now 1,000 people start doing it and it stops working.
There's a intro to this book where he literally says exactly what you just said.
The
Where he
templates
says,
don't work.
templates don't work. He's like, don't use templates. Because the problem with templates is they assume a bunch of context
Yes.
that is actually what matters. And so, for example, like, yes, there's always going to be a hook. There's always going to be some type of, transition into the body copy. There's going to be some type of offer and call to action at the end. I mean, there's a structure. But in terms of like pre-written templated copy, like think about just Gen Z as an example, like the lingo they use. Or if you go into like, being a doctor, like you go into a heart surgeon, what I use on, Bob the plumber is not going to work. And that seems kind of obvious, but I think that a lot of people overlook that reality. And what I have found, to your point, is the thing that I look for, like putting aside copy, I just think about sales. What are my objectives on my first sales call? Like the most simple thing. One is
Discovery.
just, well, for me, it's actually trust. I want to build
Yeah.
trust. I'm assuming that the person is qualified. So yes, you're right. Discovery is like, does the person actually fit what I need? But assuming that that's true, then the next thing is like, how do I quickly get them to trust me?
Right.
Because if they implicitly trust me and they have the money and I'm the person they trust most in the world and they think I can fulfill, who else are they going to go with? But trust comes from subject matter expertise and just talking to people. So but this gets to a good point that I want to ask you about. I'm struggling with this as a teacher because I have my own courses, I have my own stuff. And I think you've been more successful than I have by a long shot on the info product side because I'm just getting into that world. I'm really high ticket software sales. I'm finding it difficult to teach people what is real versus what they want. In other words, like what you just said, where it's like, if I tell them the truth, right? And the truth is business is really hard. You're constantly iterating and changing. You're wrong 95% of the time. Most of your tests will never work. And you're going to work your ass off for 80 hours a week, probably for the first 2 years, and you'll probably still fail. Like, that's what I would honestly say. But like,
Right. And that's the honest truth. But no one wants to hear that. That doesn't sell. And does it help is the other question. Not really in a lot of cases. I think the best teachers are the ones who can take that reality and find some kind of step-by-step process to get through it the right way. So I'm not going to give you the templates, but I'll give you the tactics, the themes of what works, the strategies, like why, the psychology of why, a Trojan horse tactic or a foot in the door will actually convert. Now, how do you design that for your offer in ICP is up to you, because there's so much nuance there. But that can be very difficult to do, especially at scale, when you have people from all kinds of levels and all industries and all. It's very difficult to do like a one size fits all in a course. That's why the coaching is so valuable.
Yeah, it is a challenge, and to your point, there's like different levels of the game, right? So it's like if you're in a mastermind with Alex Hormozi and Russell Brunson, and the inner circle of Russell Brunson, that's a much different conversational level than how do I launch my first offer. And I'm kind of bridging the gap here, trying to give both flavors in this podcast. But I would say it's a challenge, because I would say I think my brand is more like intellectual philosopher, deep thinker, and I think that turns off most people, honestly. So I'm actually in awe of the copywriters. There's a great what's that guy's name? The guy that used to work with Ryan Dice over at Digital Marketer, great copywriter. But every time I would go and see him, he played dumb. Like, brilliant guy, but his whole affect was like, he had a character that he played in public. And it was, I'm just a dumb guy and I say stupid jokes, And I could just tell, I'm like, there's no way that's his real personality. Because at the side, he would go into this deep, thing. And I just started to think, I'm like, is that what it requires?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder what that is, where somebody on paper is a lot different and smarter than they appear in reality. Is it playing dumb? Is it actually dumb? Are there two different types of intelligences? Maybe he just doesn't know how to talk or come off to people, but you put him down in front of a keyboard and...
Well, I actually meant it as a compliment. I think when I say dumb, I don't mean dumb intellectually. I mean super plain speaking. Because in copywriting, his whole lesson was speak in a third grade language. Speak as simply as possible. It's the reason Russell Brunson and if you look at any of these books from Alex Hormozi, they're constantly giving you these little doodles. If anybody's listening, you get these little kind of doodles where little graphs and stuff. And the reason they do that, to your point, is they're trying to distill a complex idea into a simple message. A lot of
the
pictures
best subject
this.
matter experts. It's the ones who can take complex ideas and turn it into a simple doodle, or take the complex ideas and stand up and give a talk about it in third grade language. For somebody who's just learning that thing, I think that's a much harder thing to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because I think you're right. Is that what is a great teacher? But I think as we go further into social media and content and YouTube, I think that is what sells. You're a teacher. You are a professor of whatever subject you are presenting as, and there's a different way to package it. And that's what I think you do very well. So I'm asking these questions because I know that you've thought about this in some way, and you've thought about your brand, and you've thought about your positioning in the way that you structure your videos, probably deeply.
Probably not as much as you'd think.
Really? Okay. Well, tell me about that.
Yeah, I'd say for the majority of my videos and my brand, I'm really just teaching what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. I think the way that I present it comes off as a subject matter expert because I know this stuff. I'm actually using it every day. I'm not taking some ideas and figuring out how to teach it. And I've tried stuff like that. I have a creative director who's like, you should do a video on, how to generate unlimited leads with Gemini 3 Pro. And it's like a scripted half of it. I'm like, I'm not doing this. It's not authentic. And I feel like when I do content like that, I don't sound like an expert because I can't break it down simply. There's parts of it that I'm still confused with, which gives me no right to teach something like that. So when you see me presenting in a certain way, it's usually on something that I'm literally in the process of building, in the process of doing, or have done a million times and can teach it in my sleep. which is a hard thing to teach somebody else how to do, because it comes from building my own companies with the tactics that I'm teaching. So I think it would be impossible to build an audience, maintain an audience, and maintain the brand that I guess you rightfully like see and appreciate and commend me on if I wasn't actually doing it at the same time and practicing it and implementing it. So I think that's, I don't want to, not a secret, but that's the key to presenting in that way.
So in terms of your actual production, obviously you are it sounds like you're obviously the main character, but it sounds like you're the director too, to some degree. Do you work with a team of people that help you with production and scripting, or like what does the actual setup look like?
I've tried all of it. I can let you know what the setup looks like now and what that didn't work for me. I've tried script writers. I have a creative director. I'll say the script writing does not work. It takes a little bit of my soul every time I've done a scripted video. If you go to Lead Gen J and type in Taylor Swift and see like my Taylor Swift video, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So I've probably done like 5 of those total, and I'll never do them again.
That's awesome.
So all of the creative direction now comes from me. It's stuff that I'm in the process of doing, think that needs to get taught, updating about a software, doing a software walkthrough, things that I know people are going to find useful. I've done a lot of promotional stuff in the past, especially when I was starting off, because it's tempting as you're growing. All these companies throwing money at you. That also sucks a little bit of your soul and you lose people's trust. I haven't done a promotional video in probably 6 to 12 months. My process now, I write the whole script. Usually I don't write the entire script. I just write the hook, like the first minute, how I'm going to, capture people's attention, get them bought into the video. I'll put that on the teleprompter. So I'll just run through like that first minute. And usually everything after that is either bullet points or a screen share where I'm just kind of winging it, teaching them what I'm doing. And then after that, I'm in charge of the scripting, the filming, and then kind of the uploading. And when I do the uploading, it's with all of the creative direction. I've got 2 editors, one that just focuses on intros and one that does all of the stitching together at the end. The one that just does the intros also does all of my short form videos. This way we can really ramp up production, because most of the editing after that first minute, it doesn't need to be fancy. It's just stitching things together, cutting out mistakes. And sometimes these videos can get very long, so it can be tedious work. My creative director now, his name's Marco, is really in charge of the packaging. So helping with thumbnail instructions, helping come up with some titles, working with my 2 thumbnail editors to go to run through some ideas. Because a lot of elements involved, just like a cold email. A YouTube video needs to accomplish a lot of different things. It needs to rank, needs to get clicked, needs to get people to watch through the first 60 seconds so you can't bait and switch them. So you get better at that with time as well. I still post all of my YouTube content myself. I don't like anyone else pushing the go button. So I'll upload all the thumbnails, write in the title. I usually make last minute changes, write in the description, make sure all the links are good, and schedule it to go live. And then all the promotion is my team.
And you learned this just through doing, or did you hire a coach, or how did you go down this path?
My learning style is very much starting on YouTube, find creators that I really resonate with, and like their style, feel like they're teaching something at my level to me. I buy their course because typically they have one, and I go through a lot of courses. So I probably do a course a week on something, whatever I'm trying to learn. Right now it happens to be Claude Code. So I'm always kind of sharpening skill sets. When I was really dedicated to learning and mastering this YouTube thing, I probably did 4 or 5 courses on YouTube. Various different creators, trying to like learn and pick out different things. And then from there, it's just trial and error.
Do you recommend any particular courses that people should check in on?
Yeah, Sean Cannell's course is really good for like equipment. I think it's like Creator Academy. So one thing that a lot of people struggle with is just like being able to sit down, press play, and shoot. I'll also say that I've been through a lot of different equipment stacks, a lot of which give you like marginally better quality, but at the expense of a lot of complication, like recording directly into an SD card versus my computer. I've very much gone back to let's do the simple thing that gets me 90% of the way there, that doesn't create any barrier to me creating content. Terms of strategy, I don't think there's a specific course that I want to point people to because there's so many different types of creators with very different strategies. If you're trying to entertain, you don't want to do the course I did. If you want to do talking head videos, Meet Kevin has a really great YouTube course on like how to win the SEO game and do content really quickly and do screen share content like this. So I just start with the YouTube videos, free stuff, find creators you resonate with, buy their stuff, and if you can come out of a course with 1 or 2 golden nuggets that you didn't know before, that's going to move forward and get implemented, then it's money well spent.
That's such a great advice, because I think people buy one course and they expect the Holy Grail, and I the same way I read books, I digest movies and content and any piece of content, and my rule is if I get one nugget,
Yes.
it was all worth it. It all could be just bullshit, but it's like if I read this, thing on branding, which is a great book by Alex Ramosi. It was in his like that $6,000 thing that he did on his money models launch. But this thing is like such basic. You can read in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
but it's like one nugget, which is like it blows my mind. And so then it's like, okay, you stack 20 nuggets on top of it, and then all of a sudden it's that scaffolding, kind of like a 3D space of just, oh, I'm walking into it. I can see it. It's very clear to me. Whereas people look at one perspective and they think it is God. And I remember when I was writing, I had a thesis in college, and I had to go to source material. So I had to read like State Department documents for a political science thesis. And I had to like read the CEO transcripts. And then I actually went to the original stuff. And then I would listen to authors on the subject, like from 10, 20 years later, talk about that period. And they would all have different kind of bias and perspectives. And what I found was nobody really had a firm, perfect position on anything. And so the best way to get the truth was to just digest it all and then come up with your own kind of take. And I think that's kind of what you've done here with YouTube and the way that you've learned.
Yes. There's nothing worse than when somebody signs up for my program. They're making less than 5K. They're like, I just spent my last $1,000 or $2,000 on this thing. Like, I hope this is it for me. This is going to be the solution. And it totally can be in a lot of cases. But buying anything like that and assuming that just buying the course is going to change your life is the wrong way to look at it. It's an accumulation of knowledge, sometimes just reinforcing stuff you already know, and then hopefully coming out of it with just a single insight, whether it, like you said, just like, I've done 3 courses on this and everyone's doing it this way. This is the way that I should do that thing. Because if all the experts are saying to do that, it's probably right. Versus if you're seeing a bunch of conflicting opinions, now you can really form your own kind of opinion on how to go about something. See what tools people are using, tactics people are using. And yeah, it's an accumulation of knowledge, and be surprised how fast it snowballs.
And I think that just the knowledge that we just described, the knowledge of knowing how to digest information is a superpower, because I think that the expectation a new beginner has, even if they're experienced in one thing, but they come into a new thing and they haven't thought about digesting content in that way, they put too much emphasis on one thing, and therefore they get let down when then that thing doesn't result in like the Holy Grail. And then they conclude that all other things are bad, and I can't waste more time and money. I'm just going to go back to my day job or whatever thing that they are escaping from, because they think that, all people have bad content or all people don't have the full picture. And I think it's the wrong way to look at it, is that, look, we all have different perspectives. We can all learn from each other to some degree, but nobody has all the answers. And you're looking for pattern detection across the content, to your point, where sometimes it's all like, yes, do this. Everyone says this. So I think it's a huge, huge, huge deal. And it took me a long time personally to figure that out. Because I remember I was the guy you just described. Like I bought the Frank Kern How to Launch Your Consultancy Business back in 2013 or 14 or something. Anyone who doesn't know Frank Kern, he's one of the OG's internet marketers. And he always would say, like, I'm the highest paid consultant on the internet. That was his positioning. And I bought his course, and I remember I didn't get what I wanted out of it. But it wasn't his fault. It was that I was completely ignorant, and I was missing 5 other angles that I needed to go on a journey to find.
That's why starting with the YouTube content is so important first too, because you need to see if that person's a real expert, and are they speaking to you? Do you resonate with them? Are they have you learned something from them on YouTube already? And I think that's a really, at least in my experience, a really good signal that the course is going to be valuable to you. You're going to enjoy the course.
I brought this up before, but it's worth repeating here, which is there is a tax to be paid to distill or determine whether you should digest a piece of content. In other words, if, again, we use Warren Buffett, I use him as an example of like, you can't think of somebody who's, really higher than Warren Buffett typically. I mean, maybe there's in the weeds, but when people think of like finance and like investing, they think, okay, Warren Buffett, look at that guy. If Warren Buffett gives a piece of advice, people there's zero consideration of like, is this true or not? It's like, okay, I trust him. Whereas like if I say something about financial advice, there's now like a 20-30% like bullshit meter kind of going off in the person's head,
At least there should be.
There should be, right.
The ones without the bullshit meter, those are the ones that get tricked into buying these really horrible products.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's your point though, is that what YouTube can do is create a kind of a freebie to test the waters of credibility, and that's what allows for later sales to be less risky. So to turn the discussion kind of in a different direction, I'm very curious on, 2 Inc. 5000, right? Nominations. Is that how I don't even know how I've never been on the Inc. 5000. Hopefully someday. What does that even mean? Does that mean that you got nominated to be on it, or how do you even get invited? What's the process there?
So you have to apply. It's the 5,000 fastest growing companies in the United States for that year. They've got the national award, the regional award. We've won the national twice. You basically have to submit your annual revenue over the past like 5 years, and if they see a certain percentage of growth, then you get invited to the conference. You get an award. You're ranked from 1 to 5,000. It's out in California. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, getting it more than once is because it's really easy to get it from like year 1 to year 5. Obviously, it's really easy to grow really fast. It's really impressive when you see the companies that have been getting it for like 20 years, because keeping that level of growth is not easy. But yeah, it's probably the most popular, well-known award for growth. But we've got all kinds of them behind us. We're a PR company, so you got to apply for the awards.
Yeah, no doubt. And I've heard of it before, and I've known people that are on it. I just never even thought about the process. But so how did that happen for you? Because again, I'm trying to distill for the audience, because people are like, man, I would love to do that. That sounds awesome. I want to be on the Inc. 5000. When you got started, what was the timeline of that? How long did it take? What exactly let you get to the next level? Anything around that journey, I think, would be fascinating for people.
I mean, there's a million steps between starting and getting to Inc. 5000, one of which being, I think there's a 4-year minimum for how long you've having to been in business growing. So for those startups, I'm like, I want to win an Inc. 5000 award. A lot of it's just time and nose to the grind. A lot of it comes down to not just learning how to market, but learning how to scale, which is a whole different skill set. There's hiring, there's management, there's processes, there's SOPs, there's finding and cultivating the right talent in your organization to allow for growth. So 60 employees, it is, it's crazy. It's so many people. Managing that many people is a pain in the butt. There's all kinds of systems and technologies and people that are needed just to maintain a staff like that. And these are all little hurdles that you have to overcome one at a time while you're growing. There are different problems that you face during those growth and pain periods. Your sales and marketing is on fire, and you're onboarding more clients than your ops team can handle. So, you need to scale up your ops team. You need someone in charge of you need to build a recruiting system, so you always have new publicists or operational people on board. You need an HR manager, because now all of a sudden you've got benefits that you have to pay out to all of these people and W-2 payroll. So all these little things that you have to conquer and learn on the way up. is really what it takes to win an award like that and continue to win them. It's usually a lot more involved than people think.
Yeah, I love the concept of supply side versus demand side constraints, which is that like most people think they have demand side constraints because most people don't have businesses and they're like, I just need to sell something. I'm like, but have you tried to fulfill something before? Because that is where it gets weird.
Yep.
Especially the first time when your service and your offer sucks and your software isn't fully built. And that's where customer success, support, onboarding, anything that comes with the fulfillment is actually can be a constraint, or even just the operations, to your point. When you get to a size of your business, I mean, like you said, there's health insurance and there's all the benefits and there's a whole HR component of it.
Yeah.
So it is interesting is that business from the outside looks like I sell stuff and I get money, pure profit, baby, But it's the unit economics of a business is something I've become obsessed with, and I haven't reached the size that you have. I've gotten a couple of
software is
businesses.
so attractive. I mean, I envy you for having a software product. I mean, you build out something good that works, and you basically remove that constraint, and all you have to do is market and sell. And obviously, with little customer support, it's infinitely scalable. That's why software companies are the ones usually selling for billions of dollars. With a service business like our agencies, that constraint is very real, especially when you're a good marketer, and it can be a pain in the butt to deal with. It's a tough one.
And there's no doubt. And that's what I say for anybody who is launching a GTM agency. My experience is, I call it the yo-yo effect, is that you can get to 5 clients by yourself, fulfilling by yourself. And it seems easy because you fulfill by yourself. And then when you hit 5 clients, at some point you have to hand it over to somebody, a GTM engineer, somebody who's running the operation side. And that's 6 to 12 clients I call the yo-yo, because people that aren't used to fulfillment and operations and standard operating procedures, they'll just go up to 12 and then they'll lose them, and up to 12 and they'll lose them. And to break through that, there's a fundamental shift in behavior and belief systems that have to occur around what does it mean to standardize and fulfill. And I think it's why if you look at the market, and I sell to a lot of GTM agencies, so there's like 20 big guys in the world, and then there's like this long kind of medium tail of like 200 medium-sized agencies. And by medium-sized, I mean they're doing $1 million to $2 million annually. And then there's like this slew of wannabes who, no offense to the wannabes, but they have 2 clients or 3 clients, and they would love to be those big guys, but they can't get past it. And it's an operational constraint, not a demand constraint. And I think it's like people kind of laugh at me when I tell them that, hey, that's actually your constraint, because they're so much in the thick of the demand side constraint because they don't know how to sell yet.
Yes.
So I don't know, like it sounds like you never really had the sales problem, or did you? Did you have to overcome some type of hurdle in the beginning to begin to sell your services back in the day?
No, I'd say beginning to sell was easy. And this is probably goes hand in hand with what you were just saying, where people can't clear like that 6 to 12 range, because it goes from founder-led sales and founder-led operations. I'm selling you this service. I'm going to be doing it myself. You're going to be working with me. To now all of a sudden the founder is selling a service with the handoff with an ops team that's probably not fully trained, without a good onboarding process, and you're going to lose a lot of people in the meantime. Once you do that shift from selling a service to work directly with me to, let's get you onboarded and over to my team, a lot of things need to happen on the operations side, the onboarding side, and the entire way that you market and sell that offer. So it's a much different positioning that you're going to be working with me versus you're going to be working with the company, with the team. Because now all of a sudden they need to have the trust and the ability to fulfill on that service. And you're not just trying to sell yourself, you're trying to sell the company as able to do that. So that's a struggle that people hit, I think, probably in that 6 to 12 range when they bring on an ops team. And it can be tough. That's why you need to build up so much reputation around the company and not just yourself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, that's what happened with Alex Hormozi. Talks about when he tried to sell his business that he ran into this brick wall, which was key man risk. And so when I went to his, he has this whole thing in Las Vegas. I pulled this up before, but shout out to Alex Ramosi. Here's your plug. Scaling
Yeah,
workshop.
I've got mine back there too. It was a cool event.
Yeah, it's a 2-day event, and but he talks about this idea that you have various constraints in the business, and the constraint is many times a key man risk, especially with a small agency. Because if you die, well, the business dies with you. And what happened with him was he was the face of all the ads, face of all the brand, and he went to sell, and they said, like, look, like, we can't do this without you. So he had to literally train a lookalike kind of guy to say the ads exactly how he said them, and like take over kind of the whole optics in order to sell successfully. And I thought that was interesting because you're right. I don't come from this world. I think I'm a very weird lead gen guy. In the sense that I created the lead gen front end offer to my RevOps agency because people wanted lead gen. And then RevOps wasn't sexy, but man, it sticks, and it's actually what people need because they have a fulfillment problem on the sales leads in terms of like turning them into actual customers. Whereas everyone thinks you just got to generate leads. I'm like, but have you closed them? Have you gotten revenue? Because that's a big difference. And so then finally it's like, okay, we can then dovetail into the software. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think that people are wildly underestimating what a great user experience, both on the software side and a customer success side for a service business requires. And it's like, I kind of feel bad for telling people to start agencies. I have a whole program right now where I'm like, start your GTM agency, because I know how hard it is. And most people are operations averse. They just want the money. They don't want the actual headache of fulfillment.
Right.
But that's the game, man. So how did you guys overcome that? I mean, you had to, did you create all the processes and systems after the 6 to 12 clients, or what was your journey to productize your services?
I do have a co-founder at Otter. He's very much in charge of like management operations, while I'm very much offers and marketing. But I think I wear both hats most of the time. Anytime we're building automations, standardizing processes, it's usually me. I don't think we struggled with it for too long. I think we scaled past that 12 relatively quickly. I think we were kind of blessed to do it during like the COVID era. So we had a whole bunch of people just coming over to our condo every day and working directly with us. Our first hire is now our COO. So we had great help early on. But yeah, during that first period, I think because it was me and my co-founder, we were running the ops. We probably got to like 20 clients before we really brought on some operational help. But when we did, I don't think we faced too much of that because of how productized and systematized it was. I had already run an agency in the past. I run the marketing agency I built during medical school. And I love processes and operation. So I don't think I ever struggled with that the way that a lot of people do, where they're just, sell, market. Now let's figure out how to fulfill on this stuff. We were pretty good on that from day one, but it was probably 20 clients before we turned over ops to outside teams. And then this hard struggle after that, the way I think a lot of founders cap at like 50 clients, is turning over sales to outside salespeople. Most founders will try and hire a closer, and they'll be like, you know what, they're closing, half as good as me if I'm lucky. So now I got to figure out how to hire, train, and run a sales team effectively, and just accept that they're not going to close at the same rate as you. But if you want to focus on growing the business, you eventually need to not be on sales calls all day, every day. So that comes after handing off the operations, and is, I think, equally as challenging. The thing that I still haven't been able to fully figure out is how do you hand off all of the marketing? Because any really talented marketer is not really for hire. You can find people to come and oversee stuff, but talented marketers that know that can push marketing projects forward and run them independently, I still have not yet to find.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, because most of them are really rich because they've started their own products and businesses. Or if they're not, they're charging you $1 million to be involved. And so, yeah, it's fascinating. So like one of my core offers at my agency is called Scale Up. So we come in and we deploy turnkey sales operations, inside sales team setup. We will help hire everybody, train everybody, all the automations on everything, training, what they do, when they do it. Even for the manager, we'll train the manager. But that took me 10 years to learn, like that's after starting so many failed startups and companies. And I didn't really get into lead gen in the way that you do it and the way that I now do it in terms of like, scaled ads and large scale outbound, because I was selling high ticket software. So I was just purebred boiler room, give me a list and we're going to cold call people. So I had to, from day one, learn how to hire and manage and coach and run an entire sales operations. And then I dovetailed into your world later on. But it is not easy, man. And I'll tell you, dealing with human beings is a lot more difficult than pushing buttons on ads. So I know we're running out of time. I wish we could talk for a lot longer, but I want to make sure that you and I have time to catch up after this. So what I like to ask kind of at the end of every podcast is to make it more human. And I ask a very simple question, but it's a deep question, so feel free to take your time. If you had to leave the world with any piece of advice, like it doesn't have to be sales and marketing. It can be, certainly can be. And it doesn't have to be about business, it can be. Whatever you would want your fellow man, 200 years, they're watching YouTube, they're trying to digest what happened back today. What do you want them to know?
It's so hard because I'm so young, and I hope all the decisions I'm making play out the right way. Because if I were to die today, I'd be pissed that I lived the way that I lived. I spend 90% of my time in this chair building shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Assuming my plan plays out the way that I think it does, and I die 150-year-old, very rich man with a ton of grandkids, then I think my advice is going to be never stop learning. And as soon as you stop growing and stop consuming, stop learning new skills, not only does happiness go away, because you need growth to equal happiness, especially as a man. I think if you don't have some kind of upward mobility in life, you stagnate and you get depressed. But there's always so much to learn. Learning is fun. It's going to enable you to be successful no matter what you're doing. Just stay on top of whatever it is that you're passionate about. Consume content, watch videos, listen to courses, read books. As soon as something new comes out, if you're obsessed with copywriting, read that new copywriting book, do that new copywriting course. There's not like a week that goes by that I'm not trying to learn and sharpen my skill set. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is just keep learning, keep growing.
I'm laughing because what you said about I just sit in this chair. People think that like we just walk away from this office, but really this is where we're at. We're just kind of like stuck in this little like office prison of like blue light. But it is funny because I oftentimes think, man, like, am I doing the right thing? Because I was at a men's group. I go to Monday men's group where we talk about, life and deeper philosophical realities that beyond just business, family and friends and where we are at and our emotions. And somebody asked me like, Ben, like, we feel like we don't even know you. Like all you do is talk about business and how your business is this and your business is that. And they're like, we just wish we knew you better. And I'm just thinking to myself, really? You don't know me? Like, I'm like, come on, baby. This is like, I'm just telling you who I am and all the problems I'm having with my businesses. But it made me sad because the truth is like me as a non-business person, I'm actually pretty chill. Like I'm not this intense. Like, I'm philosophical. I'll be like, why are there stars in the sky? That kind of shit. But I'm not like super driven. It's like, yes, I want to go work out. Yes, I want to have a good time, but I'll go watch Netflix. We can go get a nice lunch, talk about whatever. And I don't do that. Like my friend just invited me to come to Washington, D.C. And I was like, I can't go. I just can't afford to get on a plane for 4 hours each way, spend the whole weekend. I'm like, I got to make some ads. I got to create some more content. And it's actually sad to me because there's no doubt at this moment I could go sit on a Brazilian beach and retire. And I'm
Same.
like, why am I doing this? You know, like there's a part of me that asks myself that every day.
All the time. Yeah, I think it's a normal thing we should ask ourselves as we're spending so much time in here. I've got no windows in this room. I have a 360 view of Miami, water view, city view on the other side. I can walk all the way around my balcony. I chose the room with no windows so that I can turn my lights on and have a good shot when I want to sit down and film.
Exactly.
And I'm not battling the sun. All of the decisions that I make on a day-to-day basis are under the assumption that one day the resources, the doors that this opens are going to play out, and it's going to have been a very good decision. And I think it already is, because if I'm not growing, I'm not happy. I could go sit on a beach, but then I'm going to stagnate. I'm going to watch the businesses, slowly decrease before my eyes, and it's going to cause me pain. No amount of sunlight and, girls and whatever else people find enjoyment in is going to make me happy more than growth.
I 100% agree. I love the quote of pursuing life through values you choose. And I certainly do that, and I agree. Self-actualization, I think, is the goal for people like us. We're obviously high drive, smart people that want to be creative and build something amazing. And Raval Navikon, I think that's his name, Naval Ravikant. I always get his first and last name letter mixed up. He was on this podcast recently I was listening to, and he said, so I sold my business and I didn't have to work anymore, and I did all the stuff that you would expect somebody would do, which is kind of went and partied a little bit, traveled, I made some angel investments, sat on some boards, and basically retired. And he's like, and I got pretty bored and pretty depressed pretty quickly, which is cliche. But he said, at the end of the day, I realized what was going to make me happy. It's the same thing with Alex Ramosi. He went through this depression period he talks about, after he sold his launch gym launch business. And I think everybody seems to come out to the same end, which is it's not about the more money that they're after, because that's what it looks like optically.
Right.
It's more about self-actualization of what is the thing that I can do that engages me in a learning path that is, one, interesting and fun, enjoyable, but also that challenges me as deeply as possible so that I grow and unlock. And for me, that's the game of business. I mean, it's such a hard game. All the little moving pieces of the market and the competitors and the positioning and the brand building and all the things we've been talking about today. There's so many little cracks to go down. The problem is, and I wrote a post about this on LinkedIn, is I kind of feel a little locked into it. I mean, honestly, I feel
That's the philosophical question: is when does it end? Is
Right.
there a number which you just enjoy your family and go to the beach? I don't know. I don't. Maybe I'll feel differently once I have kids, but for right now, I don't see an end.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm not upset about it. I love what I do every day.
Yeah. I do too. I just wish I did it with less stress. There's this one guy that I follow. He does 50 million a year in his business. He works half the year and he takes half the year off. I'm like, that sounds great. I'm like, let's do that. That sounds amazing. You just get to come in and play CEO, and then you walk away for half the time. So maybe we'll have to do a podcast in 5 years when we find out how this all worked out, or 10 or 20.
It's going to be very interesting watching all of my friends who are hyper successful grow and what they do with that time and money. I keep hearing more and more of the stories that you just mentioned. They sold their business, they're depressed, they had to start something new. Every single one of the high performers that I've talked to here in Miami that are more successful than me usually have a very similar story. So I think that's just how it plays out.
Well, we'll have to keep notes on this. So where
Yes,
can
we
people
will.
find you online?
Just type in Lead Gen J, I'll pop right up. LeadGenJ.com, Lead Gen on Instagram. And feel free to shoot me a message. Say that you saw me here, and I promise you I will respond personally.
Very cool. All right. Well, guys, I'm going to put the links in the show notes. We'll put the YouTube channel as well as some of the links so you guys can all check out Lead Gen J. Obviously, follow his content on YouTube. It's been a pleasure. I was looking forward to this, and it did not disappoint. So we'll have to do it again. Any final words of encouragement or thoughts, or no worries if not. I don't want to leave you hanging.
You know what? Sure. If anyone's just starting out listening to this and hoping to, find the answers and kick things off, just know that I, left medical school doing this with no marketing experience. If I can do it, you can do it. It's just a matter of one little baby step at a time. Don't think, how do I get from here to there, looking at people like me or Ben? Just think about, how do I get from here to the next little baby step? And if you keep looking up on the baby steps, it's a lot easier of a journey.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We're signing out. Ben Reed here with the Next Gen Sales Leader Podcast. See you guys.